Tonight, a new era in the sport of boxing. A groundbreaking tournament with the 6 best super middleweights in the world. 2 world champions, 2 former champions, and a pair of the most promising undefeated contenders are risking their titles, their reputations, and their futures. Only one will emerge the winner, be declared the best of the best, and the champion of the Super 6 World Boxing Classic. Tonight begins the Super 6 World Boxing Classic with an international doubleheader. From Berlin, Germany, a clash of middleweight stars as Arthur Abraham squares off with American Jermain Taylor. And from Nottingham, England, a battle of undefeated fighters as British hero Carl Froch takes on American phenom Andre Dirrell. It's the Super 6 World Boxing Classic tonight on Showtime. Hello, everybody. I'm Gus Johnson here in Nottingham, England. This championship trophy for the Super 6 World Boxing Classic is the prize, along with worldwide recognition and prestige for the tournament winner. Beginning tonight and in the coming months, 6 of the best super middleweights in the world will face each other in a modified round-robin format. 4 will advance to the semifinals, which will be single elimination, and 2 survivors will punch it out for this championship trophy. The winner of this unique and compelling tournament will be heralded as the best super middleweight in the world. I'm happy to be joined by 2 expert analysts. My partner is always Al Bernstein, and we'd also like to welcome former light heavyweight champion Antonio Tarver. And gentlemen, after months of complex planning and extensive preparation by the promoters and the 6 boxers, tonight it all begins. After tonight's doubleheader, stage 1 is completed when Mikkel Kessler faces undefeated Andre Ward November 21st in the United States.
Yeah, and that Kessler-Ward fight might well feature the 2 best ring technicians, I think, in the tournament. Kessler, one of the favorites, and Ward peaking at the right time.
Stage 2 has Arthur Abraham fighting Andre Dirrell. And in a potential title unification bout, WBA super middleweight champion Mikkel Kessler against WBC super middleweight champ Carl Froch.
Lots of excitement in that stage. Kessler and Froch, that's a fight that is going to resonate in Europe, especially if those 2 fighters win their initial fights and this becomes a title unification match. Now, Arthur Abraham has to come to America to face Dirrell, and Taylor Ward, I'll tell you, Gus, that's going to be a shootout.
Stage 3 has the 2 Andres facing off, Andre Dirrell against Andre Ward, another European showdown as Arthur Abraham fights Carl Froch, and it's Denmark versus the United States as Mikkel Kessler meets Jermain Taylor.
The unique thing about that stage, I think, is that the 2 Olympic teammates and friends, Ward and Dirrell, they're finally going to meet in the ring, and how could Carl Froch and Arthur Abraham be anything but a war?
The group stage winners are awarded with 2 points for a victory and a 1-point bonus for a knockout or TKO. In the event of a draw, each fighter will receive 1 point. After the group stage, the 4 fighters with the highest point totals will advance to the single elimination semifinals. The winners of the semifinal bouts will advance to the finals and fight for the inaugural Super 6 World Boxing Classic Cup.
And tonight's bouts and all the bouts in this Super 6 tournament will be governed by the unified rules of boxing. One of the key things there, the no 3 knockdown rule. Of course, the big powerful punchers in this competition, and we may see that come into play. And also an important one, that if there's a clash of heads or something else that causes a cut, after 4 rounds, they would go to the scorecards before it would be a no decision. Well, Antonio, you know, this type of tournament is really uncharted territory for everyone, especially the boxers. How does a fighter approach this correctly?
Well, I think from a fighter's perspective, they must approach this as an individual fight, not be distracted with what's going on in stage 2 and stage 3. Because of the point system, they can find themselves in need of a desperation knockout just to advance to the semifinals.
And gentlemen, can this unique tournament concept to determine the best super middleweight in the world revolutionize the sport of boxing?
You know, Gus, I kind of see it as more evolutionary than revolutionary, because to me this is a natural outgrowth of the renaissance of boxing in the last 5 or 6 years, where we've had great product in the sport. And I think this tournament is important because it will institutionalize great fights over the next coming months in boxing's most talented division. And Antonio, I can't wait to see it start.
Neither can I. And I also feel that it can revolutionize because of the results from the Super Six. Let's face it, with all the attention that the Super Six is gaining, these two fighters of the finals will be household names and become pure superstars in the sport of boxing.
All right, with that in mind, 6 fighters competing in this tournament. Sports analyst Danny Sheridan has set the odds for the field.
Yeah, and if there is any surprise at all, it might be that Arthur Abraham is a co-favorite with Mikkel Kessler. Obviously, the 3 Americans are the underdogs, but they have said publicly this kind of feeling, being the underdog, makes them more motivated to win.
All right, while I'm working with Al Bernstein and Antonio Tarver, we're about an hour away from our main event here in Nottingham. And standing by in Berlin, ready to go for the Abraham-Taylor fight, Steve Albert and Steve Farhood. And Steve, as we begin the Super 6 World Boxing Classic, 2 Americans find themselves on the road.
Yeah, that's right, Gus. Like Andre Durrell there in Nottingham, England, Jermain Taylor is coming into a hostile environment here in Berlin. The undefeated but untested Durrell and the battle-hardened, highly decorated Taylor.
And you know, the stakes may be even higher for Taylor. He's at a career crossroads, especially after his heartbreaking 12th round knockout loss to Carl Froch last April.
Yeah, Gus, Taylor, as you know, led on the judges' scorecards at the time of that knockout, and tonight he'll have another difficult assignment against the undefeated Arthur Abraham, who says he will be very, very motivated by the hometown crowd. The hard-hitting Abraham is one of 4 unbeaten fighters in this tournament. He certainly has a sense of invincibility, especially here in Berlin, where he's won 28 of his 30 fights. He has never tasted the canvas, and most of his fights not even close. And who can forget his courageous victory over Edison Miranda, where he fought for 8 torrid rounds with a broken jaw. That said, he cannot match Jermain Taylor's level of opposition in this collision of 2 former middleweight champions. And with that, let me bring on my ringside partner, Steve Farhood. And Steve, Abraham has been insolvable up to this point. For Taylor to win, what has to be the difference?
Don't get tired. I don't doubt for a minute, Steve, that Jermain Taylor has the physical ability to box with Arthur Abraham, if not outright beat him. But fatigue has been a real problem in recent fights. If it's just a physical problem, it's solvable with nutrition, training, etc. If it's in his head, it's a bigger problem. He will have trouble going 12 tough rounds, taking 12 rounds of punishment. And if that's the case, you don't want to be in the ring with Arthur Abraham.
What is the significance of this tournament to each fighter, Steve?
Well, tremendous opportunity, Steve. Arthur Abraham made 10 successful defenses of a middleweight title, but he hasn't yet had a defining fight. And the Super 6 gives him the opportunity to secure one, if not more than one. Abraham wants to further prove himself in America. He wants to be remembered as a superstar, of which there are few, and not just a belt holder, of which there are many. And the Super 6 is his launching pad. Jermain Taylor, it's not accurate to call him a disappointment inside the ring because he twice beat Bernard Hopkins, and he's only one of 2 fighters to simultaneously hold the titles of all 4 major sanctioning organizations. As for outside the ring, I always thought Taylor had the stuff to be a crossover star who transcended boxing. That hasn't happened, and maybe it's too late, but the Super 6 gives him one last chance.
Well, Jermain Taylor yearns to recapture the aura of his glory days while Abraham begins his quest to become a global star. So much rides on this fight and this Super 6 tournament, and it all begins tonight.
2 years of my life in this tournament is the most important 2 years of my life, I feel like.
Every boxer boxing for World Championship is very dangerous. My next fight with Taylor, for me, very hard fight.
A win in Germany, that means everything.
Jermain Taylor is a legendary boxer. I go to win first for me and after for Germany, for everybody.
People think that he's great. He's undefeated. Now, he's coming in my weight class. And after I beat him, maybe I can get my respect back that I want so bad.
I want to have big career in America. You can win, 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 and you have a good name. You can see tonight who is smarter in ring.
I want to send a statement. You don't want none of me. I'm back. I'm still hungry.
I am too hungry. I won't win against Taylor.
I just know what it takes. I can outbox him. I'm more experienced.
I need to fight, and I need to be clever. Only win. Only win.
I fought the best in the world. I'm not worried about nobody in the tournament.
In Berlin, 6 Boxer, aber es kann nur einen geben. Berlin, let's get this party started! Coming to the ring first, Jermain, Bad Intention.
So this sellout crowd of 14,000 ready to greet the two fighters fighting outside the U.S. for the first time since the 2000 Sydney Olympics. The pride of Little Rock, Arkansas, undisputed former middleweight champion Jermain Taylor. He's got the best resume in this tournament, but he's lost 3 of his last 4, 2 by knockout. More than a 2-1 underdog tonight against Arthur Abraham. Written off by a lot of people, but he insists he's not done, despite the dreaded stamina problem, which he said was rectified by completely overhauling his training and dietary habits. But if this goes deep, will he run out of gas, as he did with Carl Froch and Kelly Pavlik, Steve?
Well, Steve, he's certainly given himself the best chance to win. For the Froch fight, he had to lose 20 pounds in 20 days. This fight, he's basically been on weight since he got to Berlin, and a nutritionist made all the difference.
Perhaps the most compelling story in the Super 6, the biggest name in the tournament, yet he probably has the most to lose. A win and his career is back on track.
Yeah, the most to gain, too.
That being said, because he's not expected to win, maybe it takes some of the pressure off, allowing him to fight relaxed, which is when Jermain Taylor is at his best. So the veteran Jermain Taylor makes it into the ring for the start of the Super 6. The fans are ready for this hotly anticipated tournament on a cool, damp night in Berlin, Germany. And they are getting ready to cheer on their king, Arthur Abraham, who's revered here in Berlin, his home for the past 15 years, as Taylor may have to wait a while, Steve, because they are planning a very elaborate pre-fight entrance. So the excitement and the electricity is very high for our co-main event and the kickoff to stage 1 of the Super 6 World Boxing Classic.
There's always excitement in Germany when Arthur Abraham fights, Steve, but this tournament has captured the imagination of this city. As a result, there's more electricity than usual.
A party atmosphere, Steve, no question about that.
Und jetzt, meine Damen und Herren, coming to the ring to the music of the Scorpions with 3, 2, 1, King Arthur!
Well, what else can you say but a ring entrance fit for a king? Hometown hero King Arthur Abraham getting the rock star treatment from the fans and the Scorpions here in Germany, but longing to be discovered by America. The Armenian-born Berliner supremely confident, which comes from a granite chin, punishing power, and a never surrender mentality.
And Steve, I've been watching Jermain Taylor the whole time during this elaborate 5-minute ring walk for Abraham. He's not moving nonstop, shadow boxing. Very important that he does that. Right now he's kind of calmed down, but he will not be caught cold. And that's very important when you have a long wait in the ring.
Abraham salutes the crowd. They love him here in Berlin. Let's size them up as we go to the tail of the tape. Both relatively new to 168. Both relieved because they had struggled so mightily and so long to make 160. Both said they'd be about 175 tonight. And Abraham has long arms for a guy 5'9", so not a major disparity in reach. Let's go back to Michael Buffer for the formal introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, meine Damen und Herren, willkommen. Welcome to O2 World Berlin and the premiere of Showtime Sports. Super 6 World Boxing Classic, the super middleweights. This contest scheduled for 12 rounds and presented by Sauerland Event in association with DeBella Entertainment. Sanctioned by the FVA President Willibald Palatine. At ringside, the 3 judges scoring this contest on the 10-point system are from Italy, Guido Cavalieri, from South Africa, Stanley Christodoulou, and from Canada, Craig Metcalf. And inside the ring, your referee in charge of the action, from Mexico, Guadalupe Garcia. And now, may the best fighter emerge victorious. Ladies and gentlemen, aus Berlin, let's get ready to rumble! Fighting out of the blue corner, official weight 76.2 kilograms, or 168 pounds. A perfect professional record consisting of 30 fights, 30 victories, including 24 knockouts. Meine Damen und Herren, aus Berlin, the former undefeated IBF middleweight champion of the world, King Arthur. And fighting out of the red corner, wearing Razorback red, official weight 75.4 kilograms, 166 1/4 pounds. Professional record, an excellent one, 32 fights, 28 victories, including 17 knockouts with 3 defeats and 1 bout even. He's the fighting pride of Little Rock, Arkansas, USA, the former undisputed middleweight champion of the world, Jermain Bad Intentions.
Okay, I already give you the instructions in the dressing room. I want a clean fight. Remember, this is the line where the low blows are legal. Good luck, check the gloves, and go to your corners.
That is a Super 6 stare down. 14,000 strong at the O2 Berlin. Taylor said there'd be more pressure on Abraham to perform well in front of his hometown crowd. We'll see. Who will draw first blood in the Super 6? Will Arthur Abraham, a notoriously slow starter, lay back in his defensive shell, or will he come out aggressively? Will he wait to see what Jermain Taylor does? Here we go. Lupe Garcia brings them together. We are underway in the Super 6 World Boxing Classic from Berlin. Taylor said he'll box. When there's any opportunity, he'll jab right through. Really important to keep Abraham at the end of the jab. Big right hand missing by Taylor. You don't want to get too close to Arthur Abraham. A very hard puncher, extremely strong, better skills than a lot of people think. So tough physically and mentally. And remember, never lost, never down, and fighting at home.
Strategy-wise, Steve, it's very important. If Arthur Abraham's going to keep his peekaboo defense like that, the Taylor punch and land some jabs, punch through the gloves like he did with Winky Wright, score points, because if Abraham's going to let you score points, you have to put the rounds in the bank.
Taylor in the red, very athletic. He's got the fast hands, the height and reach, the experience. Not easy to outclass Taylor. Big question, can he get it done without burning himself out? Now Taylor with a left hook that's grabbed by the right glove of Abraham. Taylor can also fight. He won't back down. Terrific right hand. He dropped Carl Froch early, and Froch has a great chin. But can he hurt Abraham? The thing is, you don't want to get into big exchanges with Arthur Abraham. He's got to outwork King Arthur. Here's a combination followed by another heavy right by Abraham. Jab back by Taylor.
Wide shots from Abraham. Taylor did not respond well to that wide right hand.
Usually his left hook is wide when you can answer back with a straight right down the middle on the inside. We'll see if Taylor does that. Taylor has a habit of holding his left hand low. You got to be cognizant of that. If you're Arthur Abraham, he can launch a right. Taylor going to the body.
And that's a good move, Steve, because if Abraham's going to hold his gloves by his head, the body is there to be hit.
Taylor's camp feels Abraham is protected here at home by the refs, particularly with body shots. They feel Abraham doesn't like body shots, and he does leave himself a little space there with that peekaboo defense. They think, the Taylor camp, that the refs will warn opponents for low blows when they're legal. A major bone of contention with Taylor's promoter, Lou DiBella. Taylor fights best when he's relaxed, Steve, and he seems to be pretty relaxed right here.
Well, he's using the ring well. He wants distance. He wants this to be an outside fight, and so far it has been.
So we head for the bell, round one. Good left hand there, near the bell by Jermain Taylor.
Keys to victory for Arthur Abraham: force the pace early, make Taylor work throughout the fight. Is the best way to get him fatigued. Use the jab. It's a legit weapon, and Abraham's shown it to be effective versus taller opponents. And bring his hands back, because Abraham's most vulnerable after he punches because he drops his hands. Keys for Jermain Taylor: stay off the ropes. If Taylor backs up, it's a sure sign that his legs are going. Lots of rights. In spots Abraham will let Taylor punch, Taylor should take advantage. And finished the work. Taylor dropped both Pavlik and Froch, didn't finish either, and lost both fights.
Die Führung dann bestimmt das. Und dann wieder
Zur zweiten Runde. Round 2.
Wide right hand by Abraham as his brother looks on. Doesn't like what he sees, but it wasn't in reaction to that right hand that landed flush.
His younger brother Alex, a fine junior middleweight who's 25-0-1. Round 2. Jermain Taylor comes out jabbing. Crowd getting behind Arthur Abraham, whose unusual style is designed to wear you out, to make you expend energy. That guard up high. His version of the rope-a-dope.
And it's critical for Taylor to punch, even if he doesn't land, because Abraham's punch output is so slim, Steve, in these early rounds, that Taylor will win just on volume and just by punching whether he lands or not.
Are you intrigued that nobody has figured out a way to outpoint Abraham?
I'm very intrigued because his fights haven't really even been close here in Germany.
He does bring a puzzling style. You don't know if he's going to lay back or brawl. And he can uncoil out of that defensive shield quickly and explosively. And it's not easy to get a decision here in Germany. With that in mind, as Jermain Taylor goes for the body, but now Arthur Abraham claiming low blow. We discussed it. We talked about this before. And this, a major concern of the Jermain Taylor camp. But that was a low blow.
Steve, the replay showed it all.
That was definitely a low blow. And he is being cautioned by the referee, Guadalupe Garcia.
This was an issue at the rules meeting, Steve. I attended it, and they had a long argument about what makes a low blow.
Box.
Well, that was a low blow.
Well, if you saw the first Edison-Miranda fight, that was a familiar sight. So we resume.
Steve, it's interesting. Taylor's jabbing much more, but Abraham is really making his jabs count. Very accurate as a puncher with his jabs and his power shots both.
Abraham, a very smart fighter. He's so adaptable. There's the right-left combination. The left got through the guard of Taylor. There's that jab once again by Abraham. Yes, the jab very effective by Arthur Abraham. Taylor does have a very good jab. It's not just a probing range-finding jab, but an effective weapon. Good uppercut on the inside by Taylor. Another one followed by a left hook to the head. Abraham shaking his head as if to say it didn't hurt me, or he's upset with himself.
And the referee signaled with his hands to Taylor, keep the punches up. Taylor doesn't want to back himself into a corner with too many warnings this early.
And just as he told us he would do, he is jabbing away at Arthur Abraham, and it is effective. Good part of the round for Taylor. Missed with that sweeping left hook. Back comes Abraham, but didn't bother Taylor. Those jabs being blocked by the gloves of Abraham. So hard to get through that defense. Here comes Abraham. Popping shots off Taylor's head. And he's claiming to Garcia those punches were in the back of the head and therefore illegal. And now he is saying that to Abraham. So roughhouse tactics here in the early going, Steve.
Well, you see it there. Abraham pouring it on. The fight starts as usual when Arthur Abraham says it starts. And that was two right hands to the back of the head, Steve. Very much so.
Ja, ist gut. Nein, Weißwurf sehr gut. Immer konzentriert machen. Komm her,
just concentrate yourself. Concentrate yourself. Stay cool.
Alles klar, also musst du machen.
Okay, so you got to make the next round. The next round is for you. Got to make it.
The giant, Mr. Valuev, one of the heavyweight champions on hand here tonight. Round 3. Did you see Taylor winning the first two?
I did. The second round was much closer. Abraham poured it on a little bit in the second half of that round, but I gave Taylor both, mostly on volume punching, Steve.
And Steve, it's not out of the ordinary for Abraham, who often fights at his own pace, to be down in the first 2-3 rounds, but he does have a way of taking over historically. We'll see how it unfolds tonight.
Abraham is fighting the kind of fight early, Steve, that it's pretty clear he's counting on the second half of the fight to pour it on and make Taylor fold.
And historically, particularly of late, that has been the big problem for Jermain Taylor, and Taylor knows it. We asked him about that in the fighter meeting yesterday, and he did say, yeah, he feels that Abraham's probably going to try to take this deep, try to wear him out, wear him down, make him tired, see if he runs out of gas, test his endurance. Hard body shots by Abraham. And then you go in for the late knockout if you're Arthur Abraham.
Nice move by Abraham, that combination punching, and then he took a step out and to the side. Taylor's counter punch missed by a mile.
And Arthur Abraham dangerous from start to finish, and when he has you in trouble, if he smells blood, that's when he really turns up the aggression. Again, Taylor using that jab to try to keep distance. But those punches are not effective. They're being blocked by Abraham's gloves, who's in that peekaboo style there. And again, all this makes you expend a lot of energy, and if you're Jermain Taylor, that's not what you want. He completely revamped his training. But you made a great point earlier saying, is it more physical or mental? And maybe we'll find that out tonight.
Just saw an interesting move there by Taylor. He stepped inside when Abraham punched. Abraham punches wide, just safer when you're in close. Plus, Abraham isn't an infighter. He doesn't like fighting on the inside, surprisingly, given his lack of height.
Missing with a wild right, Arthur Abraham. Abraham only 5'9", but as we said earlier, oh, good right hand flipped the head of Jermain Taylor at 5'9". Abraham's got long arms. Again, the jab by Taylor pushing Abraham back. You want to try to push Abraham back to the ropes, because when he's on the ropes, he usually doesn't punch. And that's when you can really outwork him. Heavy right hand there to the head by Abraham. He's scoring now in round 3. He's starting to come alive.
And every one of those right hands is from the side.
And now Jermain Taylor upset because the punches to the back of the head once again at the bell. Mikkel Kessler on hand, the WBA super middleweight champ, will be fighting Andre Ward November 21st in Oakland in the Super 6.
Good job. You hit your side of the head, you hit the back. Don't take nothing. Get that crown. They want a clean fight, okay? Yes, sir. All right. Hey, start going away from the right hand. Angle, him angle. Jermain, if you ever start thinking about drop that left hand, you hit the right, but you got to go toward the right. Nice round. Nice round. Don't let him get too close. I seen you try to go for the side counter. You got to chop. Don't do it. Round 4.
So Arthur Abraham, who may be in a 3-0 hole here, has to answer Jermain Taylor, who came out exploding from the blocks there to begin round 3. And he looks very determined now. He is really ticked off at Arthur Abraham for the shots behind the head. And he comes out fast here in round 3.
Well, tough rounds for the judges, 2 and 3, because Abraham punching less often, more effectively. Taylor more often, less effectively.
Beg your pardon, round 4. And again, a warning from Lupe Garcia for the low blow by Jermain Taylor. Abraham in no hurry, very deliberate. Going to the body with that punishing blow. They told him to use the right more in the corner, and he is. Jermain Taylor setting it up with the jab. The right hand block there.
Taylor can't get too happy. What I mean by that, Steve, is when he punches, he has to keep moving to the side. That'll take away Abraham's counterpunching.
The thing is, though, Steve, he's more of a flat-footed fighter who moves backward and forward. And there was an off-balance issue for Abraham. He's not really a side-to-side guy, but he's going to have to adapt here against Abraham. Developing into a very interesting fight here in the early going.
Not much of a first minute of this round 4 for Abraham. He's done almost nothing.
But again, he doesn't really concern himself that much about digging an early hole because, as you mentioned, rightly so before, he really turns it up in the second half of the fight.
Exactly. As I said when he fought my hero Oral on Showtime, the fight starts when Arthur Abraham says the fight starts.
He put Oral down in that tune-up 5 times. And Oral carried his left hand very low like Jermain Taylor. Of course, Mahir Oral is not Jermain Taylor, but there is that similarity. We'll see if it becomes a factor. A chippy fight.
Time out!
And they do touch gloves.
Wilfred Sauerland, the promoter of Arthur Abraham.
And part of this crowd of 14,000 enjoying the action.
Wenn da Lücken hat. Verstehst du? Lass ihn ruhig arbeiten. Immer hingehen, aber du musst wirklich mal aus dieser Doppeldeckung musst du mal einen Angriffsruhen machen. Und in der Mitte bleiben, nicht so weit
Stay in the middle, stay in the middle. Do some action, okay?
Bisschen stabiler, mein Junge.
Okay, just keep yourself stabilized, please.
Das schaffst du.
Okay, you can make it. You can make it.
Ja, aber
just trust yourself.
Du musst trotzdem Angriff ziehen. Die Runde kann wieder weg.
Okay, you need to do some action, okay?
Denk dran, ja?
Action from round 4. Is that another right hand to the behind the head by Abraham?
Our thanks to our translator, Alexander Stepatot, and our thanks to ARD Television here in Germany and all the terrific production people assisting us with the telecast tonight. Round 5.
Abraham, some swelling over the right eye. He's really not a bleeder. He has had swelling problems, but hasn't bled in too many fights.
You're talking about Abraham?
Yes.
With the exception of that first Miranda fight, but that was from the inside of the mouth when the blood was pouring out. His face was disfigured because his jaw was broken against Miranda, but the blood was coming from a laceration on the inside of the mouth.
Abraham's been very effective with that jab. Interesting to see if he starts using it more. But the punch that's landed repeatedly for him is the wide right hand. Hasn't thrown it much in the last couple of rounds.
Abraham able to elude the jabbing attempts of Jermain Taylor. Going to the body, then upstairs with the right hand. It pushed Abraham back momentarily, but now Abraham coming forward. Which sometimes is a signal that he's ready to get it on.
Well, he better soon. I think Taylor's putting some rounds in the bank. And he wants to tire Taylor out.
Does he try to lull you into a false sense of security and then do that?
Exactly. Let you think that he's easy to hit.
He is a very intelligent fighter, isn't he, Abraham?
And with a unique style.
Puzzling to many. Long right hand by Abraham. That's starting to find a home.
By far Abraham's most effective round.
And Taylor has to know right now, even though he was very effective in the first 4 rounds, that he is in there with a bull, a very strong man. coming forward for a brief second, but then he stepped back, and now they go at it on the inside.
Been totally an outside fight, Steve. Nothing resembling any infighting.
And that was surprising, a wild exchange. There's a straight right hand that pushes Taylor back. And that connected. That one missed. Best round by far for Arthur Abraham, round 5. Let's go to Nottingham, England.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Jim Gray in Nottingham, England, as we get ready for Durrell against Carl Froch. Carl joins us now. Carl, you said you felt that it was disrespectful and naive for Durrell to get here just 6 days in advance. Why did you say that?
I don't think 6 days is long enough to get the flight out of your system, the jet lag. I know he says it's on Californian time, but you know, you need to get the flight totally out of your system and give yourself at least 21 days, 3 weeks to acclimatise. But I don't know, he might know something I don't. It's not a massive advantage, but it's a little summit.
But you would probably be asleep at 2 a.m. and he would be getting ready to have dinner. Why is that an advantage?
It's nothing to do with getting to sleep and getting ready to have dinner. It's to do with a 10-hour flight. You know, it's a long, long way, and it's going to be dangerous for him.
All right, we look forward to the fight. Let's go back to Berlin and Steve Albert.
Welcome back to Berlin, Germany. Thank you very much. Gus Johnson, where later tonight it'll be Froch versus Durrell from Nottingham, England in the Super 6. Round 6 from Berlin. That wide left followed up by a straight right by Abraham, who has come on after a slow start, but that is nothing unusual for the Armenian.
Yeah, the logical script for this fight is being played out. Taylor early, Abraham comes on. Let's see how effective Abraham is when he comes on.
And Abraham a lot more aggressive than he was in the first few rounds. Starting to turn it on in the 5th round. And he's got that fire in his eyes.
And the best thing Taylor can do is if he thinks Abraham's about to punch, take a step at his man. All those punches will go around Taylor's head. Nothing will land.
The crowd chanting for Arthur Abraham in the white trunks. Good body shots by Arthur Abraham. Has to take it out of you. The accumulative effect. Now he pushes Jermain Taylor back with the jab, fires a right to the body. The jab by Taylor is weakening, and now again Abraham says low blow, and this could be a point.
Many times, many fouls. 1 point deduction. 1 point deduction. 1 point deduction. I want a clean fight, please. Okay.
Guadalupe Garcia deducting a point from Jermain Taylor for excessive low blows.
Well, we saw that coming in round 2 when there had already been 2 or 3 warnings. Critical, though, Steve, that Taylor does not decide to abandon the body. He's landed clean there. He hasn't landed clean upstairs.
And he's cautioned again by Garcia. You're right. Now, psychologically, he feels, hey, I can't go that way anymore. I'm going to get penalized. And it's a big point of his attack. So hard to get through that guard. Good right hand by Abraham. Back comes the jab of Taylor, pushing Abraham back. Abraham misses wildly with the left. Got him on the top of the head with the right.
I see a lot less oomph on Taylor's jab.
These hard punches to the body are starting to take their toll on Taylor. Abraham now playing around with Jermain Taylor as the bell sounds.
And here's action from round 6. You see it's low. Abraham keeps those elbows so low that if you don't want to hit the point of his elbow, you have to punch below that point, and that's going to be a low blow, and that was a low blow. And Abraham comes back with a right hand. Maybe Abraham's best round, but that was low, and given the warning, Steve, I don't have any argument with the point deduction.
Yep. Famed trainer Uli Wegner.
Die wirst du jetzt haben. Aber mache was. Aldo, hör auf mich. Das ist nicht nachlaufen.
Listen to me, okay? Listen to me.
Hey?
Listen to my voice.
Hier. 1, 2. Boom,
Okay,
boom, boom.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Ja, Aldo.
Give him some punches, okay? Just a variety of punches. Do that.
I'm going to say those are the Scorpions.
And you are correct, sir.
Thank you.
Very good, Steve.
I know my Scorpions. Round 7, scheduled for 12. The Super 6 World Boxing Classic underway from Berlin, Germany. Nottingham, England later with Froch Durrell. Abraham really coming on the last few rounds and beginning to have his way now with Jermain Taylor. Taylor's jab not having as much effect as it had in the first few rounds. Taylor losing a point for low blows. And everything's going Abraham's way right now.
Yeah, 10-8 round in the 6th for Arthur Abraham. And I have Taylor up 1 point after 6 rounds. I think Abraham would take that at this point.
And Taylor missing with a right uppercut attempt there. He is best when he mixes with uppercuts and hooks, but we're seeing predominantly the jab. And we're now getting to that point that's very interesting, Steve, in terms of Taylor's stamina issues. It's the start of the second half of the fight, where Taylor has begun to fade.
Well, you look for the signs. Against Froch, Taylor started walking backwards straight. That was a bad sign. So far in this fight, though, he's doing a very good job of keeping his hands up when Abraham punches.
Yeah, the telltale signs if he starts holding a lot and if his punch count drops. And Abraham knows that. So he's going to continue to pound away and then go back into his defensive posture. And the only thing really that's getting through from time to time is that pecking jab by Taylor, and it's not doing any damage. Oh, terrific body shots then upstairs by Abraham.
Just more ferocity when Abraham punches.
Punishing power, missing with the wide left hook.
Hey, stop! Hey, stop!
And they tie each other up.
Be careful! Watch your head.
Watch the head, says Garcia.
That's a warning for a kidney blow there.
Abraham going for the knockout punch there, but missed. He was looking to close the show with that right hand. Abraham patient, waiting for his moment, got a left hook in. That startled Taylor.
Taylor has to punch back when Abraham punches. That's when you can hit Abraham.
Well, the bell.
Couldn't hear it, the crowd was so loud.
When you put them earmuffs up, you got to step over and pull that damn left hand down and throw the right hand. You got to do it. You can get him up out of here.
Relax. Don't worry about the knockout, son. It's boxing. Relax. Deep breath. All right. Breathe. Keep turning it. Hook off the jab right hand, all right? Watch the right hand is going, because it's coming down the middle now,
I see it every time.
I know you see it. Keep your eyes on it.
But it's
still
close.
good.
I
see it every time.
All right, long as you see it.
I see it.
All right. Come on now.
Not pull out with the left hand. Whatever you do. Touch the triple both ways.
See who's good round. He's still trying to, he trying to steal around.
Action from the 7th. Again, Abraham snapping Taylor's head back. Look at that jab. He has really out-jabbed Taylor, who's probably thrown 3 times as many jabs in the fight.
Things getting urgent in that Taylor corner as we begin round 8. Taylor looking a little discouraged and perhaps realizing what everybody had been talking about with regard to the punching power of Arthur Abraham.
And Ozell Nelson, Taylor's trainer, wants him to move to the right, hold down Abraham's left glove, and fire that right hand. We haven't seen that many right hands from Taylor. It is his best punch by far.
It dropped Carl Froch early, even though Froch got off the canvas to win.
And it dropped Kelly Pavlik,
who got off the canvas to win. Abraham has never been down. 30-0. 24 by knockout.
Interesting. We've been looking for signs that Taylor might drop his gloves. It's Abraham who's boxing on the outside with his hands low at times.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Alter, komm, 1-2.
Abraham starts off with that looping left hook, tries to finish with the right, but those punches didn't land.
Abraham is so damn inconsistent with his offense, though, Steve. He never has long stretches where he's effective.
He is sporadic.
You know, he boxes the way football teams play. He's either on offense or he's on defense, but he doesn't do both at the same time.
Interesting analogy. That one got through, that jab by Taylor, but it's going to take a lot more than that to rock the chin of Arthur Abraham.
And the reason Taylor's jabs are coming in there is because Abraham's hands have been down,
which is unusual for him. Well, if good timing like that, I was just going to say, if Taylor can see that opening and fire that right, his money punch, who knows? Here comes Abraham on the attack.
Only effective punch in that entire flurry was Abraham's hook to the body.
And that's a punch he recently added to his arsenal. He used to be a one-punch guy, just the right hand. But that left hook is a freight train punch. Missing with the right, counter right by Taylor, fell short.
That's another round for Abraham. I have him up 76-75 after 8 rounds.
For more on the second half of our doubleheader, let's go back to Nottingham, England.
Jim Gray back in Nottingham, now with Andre Durrell. He will fight Carl Froch in about a half an hour from now. How are your nerves? Biggest fight of your career?
I'm pretty nervous, but more prepared than anything, so I'm ready to go.
Froch has said just recently and during the week, unprofessional for you to be here this late and naive. 6 days here in England, is that enough time, and are you adjusted?
Most definitely. I'm definitely ready. I'm setting my ways. I got adjusted real fast, but it seems to me he's looking for me to get tired. He's depending on me to get tired, and if that's the case, then he's in for a big shot.
All right, Andre, we look forward to the fight about 30 minutes from now.
Thanks a lot.
All right, with that, that's it from England for now. We'll be back in about 30 minutes. Let's go back to Berlin and rejoin Steve Albert.
All right, thanks very much. Gus Johnson, Al Bernstein, Antonio Tarver, Jim Gray standing by to call the Carl Froch Andre Durrell fight coming up later tonight. It is round 9, scheduled for 12. Arthur Abraham having his way the last few rounds after Jermain Taylor got off to the good early start. But Abraham from time to time showing a little chink in the armor by keeping his hands down low. We'll see if Taylor can take advantage with the right hand.
Steve, when this Super 6 was announced, one of the things we liked about it, the balance in all 6 fighters. We're seeing a very competitive fight right here.
And it is the best against the best overall to determine the premier super middleweight in the world. Oh, what a right hand! It rocked Taylor. A right hand by Abraham, and Taylor's in trouble. the show here in round 9. And Taylor holds on. Garcia breaks it up. Taylor trying to regain his composure. He was wobbled. A left to the neck now by Abraham.
If there were doubts in Taylor's mind coming in, they've surfaced right here.
But Abraham steps back and, for the moment, lets him off the hook. Taylor was momentarily dazed. Abraham couldn't finish him off. Taylor has his legs back under him, and a right uppercut by Taylor on the inside.
And again, the inconsistency of Abraham's attack. When it would serve him best to pour it on, he doesn't.
Yeah, he really held back. That was a borderline shot. Left hook to the body. There's the jab by Abraham, pushes Taylor back. Taylor, the smallest man in the tournament, or Abraham, the smallest man.
And Taylor's doing the right thing. The round is gone. He's not going to win the round. He's got to last the round. It's a 10-8 round for Abraham, almost no matter what Taylor does from this point on, but he's doing a good job. He held when he had to hold. He still has his leg.
Another right hand by Abraham. He's missing wildly, though, with certain punches, Abraham, and we wonder if Taylor can take advantage with a counter.
And Abraham would get an extra point if he wins by knockout. Let's not forget the tournament rules.
2 points for a win, an additional point for a knockout, no points for a loss. Taylor's in no mood to shake Abraham's hand.
And here it is. It's a right, a straight right. We talked earlier about how Abraham was throwing wide rights. Taylor told his corner around to go, I see the straight right coming. He didn't see that because it was disguised by a jab. And Alexander Abraham loved it.
Which way? Don't go the same way, all right? Keep your hands up good. Use some feint. Your pull jab was working good, all right? Don't force it right hand. You see it, go ahead and drop it off. Try to come behind, hit the ear a little bit every now and then.
And then, remember how he jumped in after you threw that right hand? Yeah. 2-3. Drop the 2. Finish up with the hook.
Take a deep breath. Come on. Check this out. Come on.
Knowing the rules, Jermain Taylor wants to survive at any cost. He doesn't want to go down and lose an additional point. Round 10. These rounds suddenly are just flying by. For us, anyway. Maybe not Jermain Taylor right now.
You know, Steve, this fight has been fought at a pace and a distance that's favorable to Taylor. It's discouraging that he could be behind already at this juncture because the fight's going his way in so many different ways, but he's not being effective from rounds 5 or 6 on.
We haven't seen the right often enough from Jermain Taylor, his big punch. There's a sweeping left hook attempt, missing wildly by Abraham. He just throws that out there to see what sticks.
And at this point in the fight, yeah, Taylor's buying time by pumping that jab. He's not scoring enough points.
Okay.
So what you're saying, in essence, is abandon plan A and go to plan B.
Well, I like to see more right hands from Jermain Taylor. It's his money punch.
I think he wants to see it, too. He's just waiting for the moment. And Ozell Nelson said he wanted to see it more. His trainer, who's known him since the age of 12. Nice stiff jab there by Abraham. And a return jab by Taylor, but Abraham's was tougher. Abraham looks a little winded.
And a little red in the face.
Yep.
Too. But he's the shorter fighter with the shorter reach, and his jab is the better jab.
And Abraham, again, he's got his hands up high now, but now they're back low again. He's confident. It's a slapping left hook, goes to the body, missing wildly with the right. and attacked by Abraham. A flurry of punches. The right blocked by the gloves, but it pushed Taylor back. Abraham continues to pour on the pressure.
What's going to stop him is counter-punching, and Taylor hasn't done any of it.
And we wonder how much gas is left in Taylor's tank. Well, it seems okay.
And Steve, there's no sense of urgency from Abraham, and as these rounds mount and he keeps winning them, there's probably not a need for a sense of urgency. He senses that he's climbing ahead on the card if he hasn't climbed ahead already.
Does he want to make a statement in front of 14,000 hometown fans? Who knows what's going on in his head?
Abraham driving Taylor back. That jab has been his best weapon.
So we are set for the championship rounds of the Super 6.
Now you see how smart Abraham is and why he's an accurate puncher. Taylor puts his gloves up. What does Abraham do? Punches around them. Suddenly goes wide with his shots. And Jermain Taylor is not as effective when he plays peekaboo as Arthur Abraham is, that's for sure.
Ringfrei zur 11. Runde. Round 11.
Abraham battered Taylor in that last round with a variety of punches. They're having a little problem with the trunk, so they're taping it up. Malcolm Garrett, the cut man, is doing his best to fix the problem. Round 11 from Berlin, Germany. Group stage 1, the first fight of the Super 6 World Boxing Classic. It's been a very difficult second half of the fight for American Jermain Taylor. Arthur Abraham, the adopted son here in Berlin, originally from Armenia. Oh, that looked like a low blow by Taylor.
And the referee was on the other side. He missed it entirely.
Abraham, a co-favorite with Mikkel Kessler to win the whole thing. And he's more than a 2-to-1 favorite to beat Taylor tonight.
We've talked a lot about Taylor fading, Steve. The irony now is that he can't worry about fading. He has to accelerate if he wants to win this fight.
As in knock out a guy who's never been down.
With a titanium chin, literally.
He has titanium steel and 22 screws implanted surgically into his chin. That coming after the bruising fight with Edison Miranda. So he does literally have a steel jaw. Nice right hand over the top by Jermain Taylor. Got the attention of Abraham. Abraham back into his peekaboo style, but coming forward.
Taylor has to keep firing that right hand, and he has to fire it hard.
There it is. Body attack by Abraham.
Steve, he's the stronger fighter. It's not anything more than that.
There's no question.
Yeah, when he punches, there's just more force on his shots, whether it's one shot or 4 shots.
And his boxing trunks are coming undone. In the front and the back.
More information than we need, you might say. Yeah.
Turning into an R-rated boxing match. Meanwhile, Arthur Abraham continues to march on, pushing Taylor back with the right off the head. Ripped trunks or not. Ten seconds left in the 11th. He continues to push Taylor back. Taylor frustrated.
And you can't counterpunch when you're moving backwards.
Got to have it, baby. Got to be smart, though. Can't get caught on no dumb shit. It's coming the last round.
Don't sit there when they open up, man. You sit there.
Letzte Runde jetzt ab.
Boxst du vernünftig, sag ich dir. Guck rein. Ein Schwenk. Guck dir mal her, das verwendet. Okay. Komm her. Flugboxen.
Okay. Need to box the right way.
So 3 minutes left in this fight. They'll touch gloves. Can Jermain Taylor summon it up for a dramatic come-from-behind victory here against a guy who has never been on the canvas in his career? But Taylor also, who has to know he's behind on points, has to stay on his feet so as not to lose another point in the Super 6. So he's got to be careful not to get caught by Abraham. All Abraham has to do is play defense. He knows he's well ahead. But I don't see a sense of urgency here from Taylor.
Not at all. This looks like one of the first or second rounds of this fight where Abraham was content to just play peekaboo and Taylor poked away. Can't do any poking now.
He just can't get through that defense.
Well, the only way to really land flush against Abraham is to counterpunch, and Taylor hasn't been able to do it. He's been pushed back when Abraham attacks.
Abraham too strong. And he just, there's a body shot by Abraham, just keeps alternating from offense to defense. There's no fluidity, no rhythm, and that's also got to be tough on Jermain Taylor. You just never know what's coming.
And Steve, it's so tough to win on points on the road in Germany or in anywhere else. Less 70 title fights here. This isn't the title fight.
Here goes Abraham again. No answer from Taylor.
But the last 70 title fights here, the record of the visiting fighter.
Left hook by Abraham.
11, 56, and 3. Only 2 fighters have won on points here.
Abraham's looking for that extra point with a knockout. 48 seconds to go in the fight. There's a heavy right to the head by Abraham.
It's looking like round 12 of the crotch fight a little bit to you.
Interesting.
Except Taylor's still coming forward against Froch. He was moving straight back the last minute of that round.
30 seconds to go. Taylor needs a knockout. Just short-circuited Jermain Taylor in the final seconds of the fight with a massive shot. And it happened so fast, Steve. Let's just really hope he's okay.
Okay, take it easy. The gloves. Thank you. Take it easy. Take it easy.
What a dramatic ending to this fight. Arthur Abraham ends it in emphatic fashion. Thank goodness Taylor's up. Seems to be okay. as Abraham salutes the crowd. Final seconds of the 12th round. A knockout for Arthur Abraham. Valuev and Kessler looking on, and maybe in his mind wondering down the road. Woo. That's pretty impressive, says Mickle. Do I really want to fight this guy?
And Steve, we were saying comparisons to the 12th round of the Frotch fight for Jermain Taylor. A little scary that he ended up getting stopped almost the exact same time as he got stopped in the 12th round of the Frotch fight.
Well, the fans get what they came to see. An Arthur Abraham knockout. To the absolute joy of his adoring fans here in Berlin. The start of what he hopes is a march towards supremacy in the super middleweight division. Able to clear the first hurdle by beating the biggest name in the Super 6. There it is. It was the right hand. A quick bullet right hand.
Set up by a wide left hook. And the right was right down the middle. Taylor's been keeping his gloves up, but that was between the gloves, right on the button. Jermain Taylor's eyes were closed before he hit the canvas. And maybe that's why it's so hard to counter Arthur Abraham. Taylor started using his right hand there. You see it in that last replay. And before he could counter with the right hand, Abraham zinged him with his own right, and that was the end of the fight.
And they told him in the corner before the 12th, don't get caught. He did. So 2 points for the win for Abraham, another point for the knockout, so 3 points all told.
And he's in first place.
Very good. No points for Taylor, who really needed this fight to get his career back on track. Falls to 28-4-1. Those 4 losses coming in his last 5 fights, and 3 by knockout.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that this fight ended with a sudden knockout like it did is very damaging to Jermain Taylor. If he had lost the decision where he fought okay the first half and faded the second half a little bit.
As the giant looks on, Valuev. Taylor is not eliminated. He continues on in the tournament. He'll fight Andre Ward. Abraham will next meet Andre Durrell. Here it is.
No, Taylor hit the ground hard. Abraham patient throughout. It's almost as if he sensed it would come. And it did with, what, 11 seconds left in the last round.
A pulsating right hand by Arthur Abraham.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, before we give the official time, a round of applause for this young man from Little Rock, Arkansas, USA, who came here to Berlin to show the world that he has more courage than anyone can imagine. Jermain Taylor. The end comes at 2 minutes, 54 seconds of round number 12. Now advancing in the Super 6 Super Middleweight World Boxing Classic. The winner by knockout, King Arthur.
Arthur Abraham goes to 31-0 with 25 knockouts. We'll be back with more from Berlin later. Right now, let's go back to Nottingham, England, and Gus Johnson.
Earlier tonight, the arrivals of our second co-feature fighters. Carl Froch is 32 years old, an unbeaten world champion, and arguably the biggest hitter in the Super 6 tournament. He's also a hard, tough man who's proven himself at the highest level. Tonight, he intends to send Andre Durrell back to the States, a broken fighter. But watch Andre Durrell once, and you'll come to the same conclusion as everybody else. His potential is unmistakable. He's been perfect as a pro, and moving up in class tonight, he plans on racing right past Carl Froch. If speed indeed kills, Durrell is the Super 6's most dangerous fighter. That's the matchup coming up next, but first, let's check out our upcoming sports calendar. Join James Brown, Chris Collinsworth, Phil Simms, and Warren Sapp every Wednesday at 9 p.m. for a new episode of Inside the NFL. Showbox, the new generation, returns to the Showtime lineup Friday, October 23rd at 11 p.m. as Freddie Hernandez fights Damian Frias in a 10-round welterweight bout, and Victor Fonseca takes on Al Seeger in a 10-round super bantamweight fight. On Saturday, October 31st at 9 p.m., Showtime Championship Boxing as IBF bantamweight champ Joseph Akbeko defending his title against Yanni Perez, and Antonio Tony DeMarco fights Jose Alfaro for the WBC Interim Lightweight Championship. Friday, November 6th at 11 p.m., Strikeforce Challengers is back with rising stars of mixed martial arts in the cage. Saturday, November 7th at 9 p.m., it's Strikeforce on CBS as the baddest man on the planet, Fedor Emelianenko, returns to the cage to fight undefeated heavyweight Brett the Grim Rogers. More Strikeforce Challengers on Friday, November 20th at 11 p.m. Saturday, November 21st at 10 p.m., the Super 6 World Boxing Classic continues with the third fight of Stage 1 as WBA Super Middleweight Champion Mikkel Kessler travels to the United States to fight unbeaten Andre Ward. And Saturday, December 12th at 9 p.m., Showtime Championship Boxing presents Timothy Bradley defending his WBO junior welterweight belt against Lamont Peterson, and Vic Darchinyan fights Thomas Rojas for the unified 115-pound championship. Now let's go back to Berlin to Steve Albert and Steve Farhood.
Arthur Abraham, I know Johannes will help us translate, but you want to answer the first question in English. What was your impression of the fight?
Was ist dein Eindruck vom Kampf?
Yeah, it's a great fight. It was a great fight, great KO, and Taylor is a good fighter. Maybe I am better.
Did Arthur think he was clearly ahead going into the last round?
Dachtest du, dass du klar nach Punkten führst, als es in die letzte Runde ging?
Of course, yes. I think I win of pound.
He's ahead on points.
He's ahead on points, and maybe. Ich habe die ganze Zeit die K.O. versucht zu machen.
All the time I tried to go for the KO, but I know I was ahead on points.
The knockout. Can he describe what enabled him to land such a devastating punch when he hadn't really hurt Taylor badly until that point?
Kannst du beschreiben, wie hast du es geschafft, so einen tollen Schlag zu setzen? Du hattest ja Taylor noch nicht so schwerwiegend vorher getroffen. Kannst du es beschreiben, wie es gelungen ist, einfach diesen Schlag zu setzen?
Ja, wenn ein Fachmann sieht, ich habe die 2,5 Minuten nur auf diesen Schlag gewartet und gesucht, diese Lücke, dass ich ihn treffe, und hat geklappt.
As an expert can see, I was just waiting for 2.5 minutes for him to open up. I was waiting for this opportunity, and then I hit him, and it finally worked.
In the tournament, you get 1 extra point if you score a knockout. Was that on his mind during the fight?
Du kriegst ja einen extra Punkt für ein K.O. in diesem Turnier. Hast du daran gedacht während des Kampfes?
No, for me it's only win. Very important, no more.
Did Taylor hurt him with anything? Did he feel Taylor's punching power at all?
Hat Taylor dich getroffen, oder hast du überhaupt seine Schlagkraft gespürt heute oder nicht?
Yeah, natürlich, yes, of course. Maybe not so hard.
Doesn't hit hard?
Not hard. No. It's normal. Not so hard.
His second fight in the tournament will be against Andre Durrell.
Yep.
What does he know about Durrell, who will fight later, and how does he see that fight?
Dein zweiter Kampf ist gegen Andre Dirrell. Was kennst du, was weißt du von Dirrell, und wie siehst du den Kampf?
Ich habe bis jetzt nur mich auf Taylor konzentriert. Ich habe keinen einzigen Kampf von Dirrell gesehen, deswegen kann ich nichts sagen. Jetzt werde ich damit beschäftigen.
Right now, until now, my full focus has been on Taylor, and I haven't seen a single fight of Dirrell. But now I will start looking at him and preparing for him.
We wish you a lot of luck in the next round, and this was a great victory, Arthur. Congratulations.
Herzlichen Glückwunsch und viel Glück in der nächsten Runde.
Thank you very much, and I hope I go to America.
I will take America.
And I will take America. That is my next plan.
Thank you, Arthur.
Right.
Thank you very much, Steve. And this is what they're fighting for, folks. The Super 6 World Boxing Classic Cup will go to the winner, Arthur Abraham, out of the gates first with an incredible finish. Now, with that 12th round knockout, he receives 3 points. 2 points for the win, 1 point for the knockout. I'm joined by my partners, Al Bernstein and former light heavyweight champion Antonio Tarver. And Al, we'll start with you. It wasn't pretty, but very effective. Arthur Abraham with a devastating right hand.
Yeah, you know, in some ways it was vintage Arthur Abraham in that he won with his defense, his chin, and those sudden bursts of power. But he wasn't as precise as we would normally see him. However, he served notice certainly that in this Super 6 tourney, he is a force to be reckoned with, Antonio.
Most definitely he is. I can look at Taylor and see that he was frustrated throughout the night. He jabbed effectively, but nothing seemed to get through. And when he did his work to the body, he was either warned or questioned or even taking a point away for the low blow. So that had to be discouraging in itself. But I thought he fought a good fight, but I see why Abraham is one of the favorites to win this tournament.
Arthur Abraham doing a fine job. He now improves to 31-0 with 25 KOs. He is the shortest and the smallest man in the Super 6 field. So Jermain Taylor, he fought 11 2/3 very well, but the last few seconds turned out to be, as Yogi Berra would say, deja vu all over again. And Steve Farhood caught up with him outside his dressing room.
Jermain, most important thing, how do you feel right now? You okay?
Yeah, I'm a little hurt, man, but it's come along with the territory. I'm hurt more than anything. I trained hard. I went out there and gave it all I had, and I didn't get the victory.
Going into the 12th round, what was your mindset? Where did you think you were in the fight?
I don't know. I couldn't even tell you, man. I was just fighting. I don't even remember.
Did you get caught with a shot you didn't see, or because he didn't seem to hurt you really before that in the fight?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, man. He just caught me. I thought I was in the best shape of my life, man. I just trained hard, and he just caught me. He's a very strong fighter. I'll give it to him.
In your mind, would it have been, even if you had lost on points, would it have been a lot better if he had gone the distance? Do you feel that way, or is a loss just a loss?
Loss is a loss to me, man. This ain't the first time. This is boxing. So you gotta expect the worst, man. Just, it's a hard sport.
Jermain, good luck to you, and go take care of yourself.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks.
Jermain Taylor, tough night for the former undisputed middleweight champion of the world. Similarly to his fight against Carl Froch, he fades in the end and loses to Arthur Abraham, virtue of the 12th round knockout. Al, first of all, I'm sorry I stole your Yogi Berra line, but that's yours. But how about Jermain Taylor? Tough night for him.
Yeah, the similarity obviously to the Froch loss. However, in this case, he was behind on all scorecards: 107, 103, 106, 102, and 105, 103. We kind of thought that 105-103 score was a little closer to reality. Once again for Jermain Taylor, excellent early in the fight, but not good in the second half. And clearly this does raise questions of how he turns things around and gets himself into the fray in a better way for the rest of this tournament.
Yes, he fought well throughout the fight, but it just seems like that knockout loss seems to catch up with him. Now, we are in a tournament based on points, so we don't want to write Jermain Taylor off just yet. He has an opportunity to redeem himself, but how do you do it with that in your mind constantly? Can I finish on top?